The Zarkonian trade bazaar stretched like a wound across the heart of the Outer Rim station. Neon lights flickering through haze that smelled of rust, scorched oil, and fear. And Chun walked its lanes with the practiced stride of a man who had worn a uniform long enough to know where danger gathered. His eyes sweeping over stalls, piled with glimmering tech, illegal stimulants, and cages that rattled when something inside shifted. Jung-hoon trailed 2 paces behind, his friend since the Terran Marine days, muttering about how their cover as freight auditors wouldn't survive if Chun kept drifting toward trouble. But Chun's focus was already caught by the soundsoft, almost swallowed by the roar of barter and shouting vendors, yet piercing straight through the din. A voice trembling like glass against stone. "Please purchase me." He slowed, and through the gaps in the crowd, he saw her, a girl no older than 20 in human years, pale-skinned with faint silver traceries across her arms that shimmered like etched starlight. Hair tangled, eyes dulled by exhaustion, crouched on the dirty metal deck with iron shackles binding her wrists and ankles. A chain fixed to a low post beside the stall of a sneering Zircon slaver. She was forced to kneel on all fours, humiliated, positioned not even like merchandise, but like an animal for display. Collar chafing her throat as the Zircon prodded her with the tip of his cane to force her to lift her chin toward potential buyers. Chun stopped dead, heat rising under his skin, memory flashing back to war zones where prisoners begged for water or mercy while bureaucrats looked away. Jung-hoon touched his shoulder, warning low in Korean, "Don't, brother. This is guild law. Interfere, and the Zarkonians will mark you." But the girl's eyes found Chun's across the crowd, and her lips formed words that cut past every warning. "Please, purchase me. Take me away." The Zircon caught the exchange and cackled, voice like grinding steel. "Cheap stock. Half-starved, but her markings fetch well among collectors. You want her, human? You pay. Otherwise, walk away like the rest." People nearby laughed nervously, avoiding eye contact, because everyone knew what happened to those who challenged guild property. Chun exhaled once, steady, like before pulling a trigger. He stepped forward, ignoring Jung-hoon's curse, and flipped a heavy credit chit onto the counter with a clatter that silenced the nearby laughter. "She's coming with me," Chun said flatly, his voice carrying the weight of command he thought he had buried years ago. The slaver blinked, then grinned, already reaching for the chit, but Chun's eyes locked on him with the kind of focus that made soldiers freeze, the kind of stare that promised consequences beyond credits. "Remove her chains," Chun ordered. The slaver hesitated, hissed that it wasn't how the guild did business, but Chun's hand hovered near his concealed sidearm, and something in his posture made even the Zircon think twice. Muttering, the alien jerked a key free and unlatched the shackles. The girl collapsed forward with a gasp, wrists raw, ankles bruised, but Chun bent and steadied her with careful hands, lifting her to her feet with the quiet respect of a medic guiding a wounded comrade. "You're safe now," he murmured, though he knew it was a promise he might not be able to keep. Jung-hoon growled behind him, scanning the crowd where guild informants were already whispering intercoms. "You just painted a target on us, young. They'll come for you, for her, for all of us." Chun adjusted his grip, carrying the girl upright against his shoulder as she sagged with relief, and he answered with calm certainty, "Then let them come. No one owns her anymore." Around them, the bizarre noise resumed, but a ripple lingered. The shock of a human defying the guild. And though Chun felt every eye burning into his back, he kept walking, step steady, heart pounding with the knowledge that in that single instant he had chosen his side, not as auditor, not as veteran, but as a man who refused to walk past chains again. Chun carried the alien girl through the docking corridors of the station. Ignoring the stairs, ignoring the whispers of those who had seen him defy a Zarkonian slaver in public. His jaw clenched as the old instincts of a Marine warred with the pragmatic mind of a freight inspector who knew every camera. Every guild informant, every coded report was already circling through the black market networks. Jung-hoon stormed beside him, cursing under his breath in Korean, hissing that this was madness, that they were outnumbered on this station, that the guild would brand them outlaws before the hour ended. But Chun didn't slow. His arms wrapped firmly around the trembling figure he had freed, her silver-marked skin hot against his sleeve, her breath ragged, her body still expecting the cane strike, even though the chains were gone. They reached Docking Bay 47, where Min-jun's patched freighter waited like a tired hound, hull scarred by years of hard runs, and Se-Oh-Yan, the ship's doctor, looked up in alarm as the ramp dropped and Chun strode aboard. "What have you done now?" she demanded, pushing black hair behind her ear as she hurried forward. But the sight of the girl's swollen wrists and bruised throat stopped her words cold. "Get her med-kitted," Chun said simply, setting the girl gently on the padded bench in the cargo hold. Sarah, she whispered her name so quietly they almost missed it, the syllables fragile, like she wasn't sure if she was still allowed to own it. Chun crouched, eye level, steady as ever, and repeated it back to her with a soldier's certainty. "Sarah, you're safe here." She blinked, disbelieving, and shook her head, clutching the broken chain links still hanging at her ankle. "No one is safe from them," she whispered, voice raw. Se-Oh-Yan ran a scanner over her vitals, frowning at the malnutrition and dehydration flashing red across the screen. Min-jun stomped down from the cockpit, wiping grease from his hands, scowling when he saw her. "Are you insane, Chun? You don't just buy guild stock and walk away. They'll hunt us. They'll brand us smugglers or thieves. We're finished." Jung-hoon threw up his hands, agreeing, reminding Chun that the Zircon Guild had outposts across 6 systems, their influence backed by mercenary fleets. But Chun ignored them, kneeling to unfasten the last cuff on Sarah's ankle with a quiet finality. The iron clinked to the deck, and he pushed it away. "Listen to me," he said, his voice low but steady, the voice that had once ordered fire teams under orbital bombardment. "I didn't buy you to own you. I bought you to end it. No one owns you now." For a long moment she just stared at him, wide-eyed, lips trembling, as if trying to understand a sentence she had never heard spoken before. Then the first sob broke from her throat, and she collapsed forward into his arms, shaking uncontrollably. Se-Oh-Yan swore softly under her breath, grabbing med-gel and bandages, gently guiding Sarah's hands into hers, while Chun steadied her with the patience of a medic who knew some wounds couldn't be stitched in flesh. Min-jun muttered about fuel rations, about guild patrols, about how they'd all die for this one decision, but Chun only looked up, his eyes hard. Better we burn with her free than live by walking past chains. The ship's cum crackled then, Jung-hoon's curse cutting through as he checked the external sensors. Too late. Guild enforcer on approach Vector Zex himself. The name dropped the temperature in the room. Zex, the Zarkonian enforcer, known for breaking crews limb by limb to make examples. Se-Oh-Yan's hand tightened on Sarah's shoulder. Min-jun went pale, already running to rig the ship for launch. Chun stood calm, his decision already made when he had thrown the chit at the slaver's stall. He drew the sidearm he had hidden since leaving the course, checked the charge, and glanced at Jung-hoon with the ghost of a smile. "Then let's remind them, humans don't kneel." Sarah flinched at the sound of the weapon charging, tears still streaking her face, but for the first time in years, there was something else in her eyes besides fear, something like the spark of hope that maybe, just maybe, this man's promise meant her chains had truly ended. The freighter slipped from Docking Bay, 47 under emergency override. Min Jun's fingers flying across the controls as alarms wailed through the station's comnet. Warnings of unauthorized departure echoing like hunting horns. And behind them, the lights of the Zarkonian Bazaar flared as guild patrol ships took wing. Chun braced against the bulkhead, sidearm holstered but ready, while Jung-hoon locked down the rear hatches and muttered prayers to ancestors he hadn't spoken to since the war. And Co Yan fought to keep Sarah still on the med bench as she flinched at every vibration, whispering over and over that they would come, that Zex would never let her go, that there was no escape. Chun crouched by her side, voice steady, repeating the words until they stuck. You are not their property. You are not a thing. You are Sarah. She looked at him, eyes wide with disbelief, and then broke down, whispering pieces of her story, how guild raiders had taken her family during a Zarkonian harvest purge. Her father cut down, her mother and younger brother dragged in chains to the markets, and how she had been separated, sold like cargo from station to station, until only the Zircon Guild remained. Chun felt the rage simmer under his ribs, controlled only by discipline, while Jung-hoon intercepted encrypted transmissions flooding the comband. Hyung, he said grimly, they've already posted your face across 6 hubs. They call you a thief of guild property. There's a price on your head before we even clear orbit. Min Jun cursed, slamming the throttle as 2 patrol craft swung into pursuit, beams raking across their shields, the freighter's old frame shuddering but holding. We can't outrun them, he snapped. We need cover, or we're dust. Esu-yeon steadied Sarah as Chun moved to the weapons console, flipping switches that had not been touched in years, and the freighter's dorsal turret came to life with a growl. Zex's voice slithered over open comms then, oily and cruel, carried across the void with the confidence of a predator. Return the merchandise, human, or I'll take your hands, then your eyes, before I take her back. Sarah froze, trembling, tears streaming, but Chun leaned forward, snarling into the comm. She is not merchandise. Not anymore. Zex's laughter was cold as iron. Then I'll make her watch while I take your crew apart. Every breath you give her will cost you. The freighter jolted as a blast clipped their flank, sparks showering the hold, Sarah covering her ears as if she could block out the thunder. Min Jun cursed again, shouting that the shields wouldn't last, that they needed to dock or die, but Chun's voice cut through like a blade. No one surrenders her. Not to them. He strapped into the turret rig, his old marine instincts flooding back, hands steady on the controls, eyes narrowing as the first patrol craft swooped in. Jung-hoon locked doors. Seo-yeon, keep her steady. Min Jun, on my mark, kill the lights and dump coolant, make them think we're bleeding out. The freighter spun, venting vapor like smoke in the void, the stars swallowed in a gray mist as the lights cut, leaving only the hum of the engines. The patrol craft circled closer, scanning for heat, and Chun waited silent, counting the seconds like he once counted enemy heartbeats across ruined streets. At the perfect moment, he fired, the turret's cannons erupting in a sudden blaze that tore one patrol to shrapnel, the shockwave lighting the mist like a brief sun. The second patrol veered wide, but Jung-hoon had already hacked their trajectory, feeding false data into their systems, and Min Jun used the last burst of thrusters to throw them into the shadow of a drifting cargo hulk. The enemy ship streaked past, searching blind. For a moment, silence held, the freighter hidden, hearts pounding, Sarah clutching Chun's sleeve with white-knuckled desperation. But then the Kung crackled again, Zex's voice colder than before. You can run. You can hide. But you have her blood in your hands now, human. Surrender, and maybe I'll leave her brother alive. Sarah gasped, eyes wide, choking on hope and fear all at once. And Chun's stomach twisted as he realized the guild had them. They had her family, alive, dangled like bait on a chain. He looked at Jung-hoon, Seo-yeon, Min-jun, each waiting for his call, and then at Sarah, who whispered through trembling lips, "It's me they want. Please, if I go back, they'll spare you." But Chun shook his head, steel in his voice. "No, Sarah, you're free now. And if they want to test what that means, then we'll show them what humans do when someone tries to put chains back on the free." The freighter's hidden refuge, among the drifting cargo hulks, lasted less than an hour before the weight of the guild's ultimatum pressed down like a blade on every word spoken in the hold. Silence broken only by Sarah's whispered breaths as she clutched the broken cuff she still carried like a talisman. Eyes hollow but fierce as she listened to Zex's threat echo through her mind, her brother alive, her mother alive, caged in the Zircon compound, their lives bartered for her surrender. Chun saw the turmoil tearing her apart and crouched beside her, his voice steady as ever, telling her she was free to choose, that no one could force her hand, not even him. But Sarah's whisper came sharp, desperate. "If I return, maybe they'll live. If I stay, you'll all die." Jung-hoon paced like a caged wolf, spitting curses about suicide missions and impossible odds, while Min-jun slammed his fists against the bulkhead, demanding to know why they were risking everything for one girl when whole crews had been slaughtered for less. Seo-yeon cut him off with a glare, tending Sarah's bruises with calm, deliberate hands, and said quietly, "Because for once we don't walk past chains. We break them." Chun listened, weighing options with the calm of a soldier planning under fire, then outlined his intent. They wouldn't hand Sarah over. They would take the fight into the heart of the Zircon compound and pull her family out with their own hands. The crew erupted, Jung-hoon calling it madness, Min-jun muttering about death warrants, but Chun's voice cut through, clipped and commanding. "We strike on our terms. I'll play the slave thief. I'll let them believe I'm surrendering. They'll lower their guard. Jung-hoon, you hack their locks from the inside. Seo-yeon, you prep sedatives. We'll mimic fainting when they drag me in. Min-jun, rig the ship with a fail-safe countermeasure. If we don't return, burn the dock and make them choke on smoke." Sarah's wide eyes filled with shock. "You would risk your lives? For mine?" Chun nodded, a barest flicker of a smile on his scarred face. "For you. For your family. Because freedom means nothing if it's only for ourselves." The plan set. Tension coiled around every heartbeat as they approached the guild compound towers of steel, glowing with neon banners of the Zircon crest, patrol drones swarming like hornets. Chun walked openly into the docking bay, wrists deliberately cuffed in fake binders, Sarah trailing beside him under a tattered cloak, flanked by Jung-hoon and Seo-yeon disguised as traitors. Zex awaited, a monstrous silhouette in jagged armor, his fanged grin wide as he stepped down from the platform. The thief brings back his prize. How noble. Chun forced a sneer, playing his part. "She's yours. Just release the others." But behind his calm words, the crew moved in shadow. Jung-hoon slipping a pulse spike into the door's security panel, Seo-yeon palming a vial of sedative in her sleeve, Min-jun feeding false telemetry through the dock sensors from orbit. Sarah trembled, the choice burning inside her, fear dragging her back toward surrender. Yet Chun's earlier words, "You are free to choose," echoed like a drumbeat. When Zex motioned for his guards to drag her, Sarah stepped forward instead, chin lifted, voice trembling but resolute. "I am not yours," she declared, louder than she had ever dared, her silver-marked skin gleaming under the neon lights. "I am Sarah." The slaver crowd jeered, guards tightening grips, but that moment of defiance bought Jung-hoon the seconds he needed to slice the lock on the prison chamber. The door slid open with a hiss, revealing cages within her mother collapsed, but alive. Her younger brother's small face pressed against the bars. Sarah gasped, tears flooding her eyes, and for the first time in years, she surged forward not as a captive, but as someone running to her family. Chaos erupted, alarms blared. Zex roared with fury. Guards drew weapons, but Chun moved like a storm, ripping his fake cuffs apart. Slamming into the nearest mercenary with the precision of a Marine, disarming, firing, covering the path as Seo Yan darted in with sedative darts, and Jung-hoon triggered. Blackout fields that plunged half the dock into shadow. Min-jun's countermeasure fired from orbit, a burst of ion static frying the guild's comms. Through smoke and chaos, Sarah reached her brother's cage, tearing the lock with trembling hands, pulling him into her arms as her mother stumbled free. Zex bellowed across the chamber, eyes blazing. "She belongs to us." Chun stood his ground, blood already on his knuckles, sidearm raised, voice like iron. Not anymore. Not ever again. And in that instant, Sarah realized freedom wasn't something begged for. It was something taken, and she chose, fully and finally, never to kneel again. Blaster fire ripped across the Zircon compound as Chun and his crew fought through smoke and shadows. Sarah clutching her brother to her chest while guiding her weakened mother, determination replacing the terror that had once hollowed her voice. And across the chamber Zex bellowed in fury, jagged armor glowing under emergency strobes as he charged like a beast unleashed, his massive frame tearing aside mercenaries in his rage to reach the human who had dared defy guild law. Chun stood his ground, sidearm flashing, each shot precise, controlled, driving Zex back step by step until the slaver drew a blade that shimmered with crackling plasma, swinging in arcs meant to shear through steel, forcing Chun into brutal hand-to-hand combat where every instinct from his Marine days came alive. His strikes disciplined, his blocks efficient, but still the sheer power of the Zarkonian pressed him to the edge. Blows rattling his bone sparks, spitting his metal, clashed on metal. Jung-hoon and Min-jun flanked, covering the escape corridor. Seo Yan dragging Sarah's family toward the ship. And for a heartbeat Chun seemed about to fall until Sarah, shaking, bloody from cuts, shouted his name. Her voice clear, defiant, carrying over the chaos like a beacon. "You don't own us. You never will again." The words struck like a hammer, rallying Chun's will, and he twisted into Zex's next strike, locking the enforcer's arm, wrenching the plasma blade free, and driving him to his knees. Silence rippled through the chamber as Chun leveled the weapon, every mercenary watching, waiting for the human to end Zex with one clean stroke. But instead, Chun lowered the blade just enough, voice steady, amplified by the comms, so every guild recorder could hear. "By guild law, she is no longer property. I have purchase records credits paid, contract voided. You are bound by your own code." He tossed a forged ledger chip onto the deck, Jung-hoon's hack blazing across every guild screen, sealing the record before the enforcers could delete it. The slavers froze, their own system binding them tighter than chains, because in their world law was ownership, and the record declared Sarah and her family free. Zex roared, trying to rise, but Chun pressed the plasma blade to his throat, his words like iron. "Freedom isn't yours to sell. It never was. And if you want to test what humans do when you try to chain the free, then try again." For a long, trembling beat, no one moved. And then the mercenaries lowered their weapons, unwilling to break guild law on record. Chun stepped back, dragging Sarah toward the escape corridor as Min-jun detonated charges that blew open their path, the freighter's engines screaming as it tore free of the compound into the void. Ion bursts chasing them, but missing as they vanished into hyperspace's silver streak. In the aftermath, the crew gathered in the dim light of the ship's hold, Seo Yeon tending wounds. Jung Hoon slumped with exhaustion, Min Jung muttering curses half relieved, half furious, but Sarah stood at the center, her brother clinging to her side, her mother weak yet alive. And she looked at Chun with eyes that no longer held only fear, but something harder, steadier, like tempered steel. She held up the broken shackles she had carried, stared at them for a long moment, then dropped them onto the deck with a final clang that seemed to echo louder than any blaster shot. "You didn't buy me," she whispered, her voice raw but certain. "You gave me back to myself." Chun met her gaze, weary but unyielding, and answered simply, "No one walks past chains, Sarah. Not while I still breathe." Seo Yan planted a sky lily in a small pot by the bench, its pale glow a fragile symbol of life enduring against darkness, and Sarah touched its petals with trembling fingers, smiling through tears as her brother whispered that it was beautiful. Jung Hoon chuckled tiredly, muttering that Chun had just declared war on half the outer rim. But Chun only leaned back, the ghost of a smile on his scarred face, watching Sarah and her family cling together in the first moment of peace they'd known in years. Outside the viewport, hyperspace streaked in endless silver, and for the first time since the war, Chun felt something close to purpose, not the orders of a commander, not the duty of a soldier, but the quiet conviction of a human who chose compassion over caution, who chose dignity over law. The legend would spread how one human tore a girl from chains and shamed the guild with their own law, and though the shadow of Zex and the Zircon still loomed, the crew of the battered freighter carried with them something stronger than fear, the proof that humanity's answer to cruelty was not silence, but defiance, and that sometimes a single refusal to kneel was enough to spark freedom across the stars.